What's up, everybody? Welcome back to today's episode of the Indy Investor Pod. We have our resident realtor, Gloria Gear from Redbridge Real Estate. How you doing, Gloria?
I'm doing great. This is our first podcast that we've done together after I've joined your team.
Yeah, and everything is going great. It was a great addition, and yeah, it's been a good start to the year. So today, Gloria and I wanted to kind of do a recap of how 2020 went. We're already a month into 2021, so we thought it'd be good to kind of recap how last year went, and then kind of talk about what we expect on both sides of the agent side and the wholesaler side for the rest of this year in 2021, and then also talk about some best practices on how to work with an agent or wholesaler in today's market. So before we get kicked off, Gloria, did you have anything to mention or anything you want to point out?
Well, I was just going to say 2020 ended up being a great year for me. I mean, I know, some people struggled a little bit, but as far as, how we did, yes, my husband and I both got COVID. No, it wasn't fun, but we made it through.
Mhm.
Also, as far as the business side, the beginning of the year when we first went into that initial lockdown, real estate sales were down. We weren't sure that what was going to happen. But for me, I actually did a flip during the time. So I got to do my first flip. So that was a good thing last year. And then, just coming out of that first initial quarantine, 2020 just kind of took off like a rocket for me business wise.
Mhm.
And I think on the retail side, sales were really good for 2020.
Yeah, it was definitely a crazy year. No one could really expect what happened, but yeah, I think most of everyone in real estate around, if they were working, then they were probably having a pretty decent year. So it's funny how things kind of work out.
Yeah.
So let's just get into a recap of 2020. So um, tell us a little bit about what you saw on how the market was, and kind of like your experience with that, and then I'll kind of talk about how everything was on the wholesale side.
So, like I said, for Indiana, really, we went into that first initial lockdown in the beginning of March. So, like from March to May, everything was kind of a standstill for real estate. I mean, we were still doing business. And as far as like working with investors, I was still out there. I was considered essential. So, my investors would send me vacant properties. I could get in them. If there was something that was occupied, it was a little bit harder to get into, but we were still buying and selling a little bit then, obviously, not quite as much. Coming out of the market, we didn't really know what was going to happen. But like I said, I did a flip during COVID and I kind of had a multiple strategy coming out of there of what am I going to do with it. I decided I was going to list it on the retail market. My first initial thought was I was going to sell it for 200,000. Decided to push a little bit and listed it for 210. It sold for 212 the first day. So that was kind of an indication from me coming out of the COVID lockdown of, okay, it's going to be crazy. Hold on. So then from that, and it was like, as far as the investors that I work with on the retail side, they were a little cautious because they weren't sure what the market was going to do. But as soon as Indianapolis kind of stabilized a little bit, they started rolling. Coming out of COVID a little bit, sellers a little more wary just because they don't want, people walking through their houses, that kind of thing. It's just kind of, unsafe. And some of them were very fearful. So we had to put some COVID waivers in place. We had to make sure we're wearing masks, sanitizing. Some places require gloves and booties, that kind of thing, just kind of the level. And then I also feel like there's just a very low inventory just because people aren't sure yet. So especially summer last year, inventory was low.
Mhm.
But on the flip side, what happened was even like my regular homeowner clients, they have been sitting in quarantine for 3 months with all their kids and husbands and wives, and they're all working from home and doing e-learning from home. And so they're thinking, we need a bigger house. So we've got to find something. We've got to find something now. A lot of them that were more urban were kind of moving out to suburbia, wanting a little bit bigger yards so that they kind of had some space to go into. A lot of people, and in fact, my husband's still working from home. So both of us are still working from home. So we kind of have to have our space of, a workspace that we can both be on Zoom calls or whatever. So I found that with a lot of my homeowner clients as well of we need something with two separate offices where we can both be on the phone at the same time. So that's kind of what I was seeing with the retail market as far as sellers are a little bit wary. All the
Yeah.
buyers are out there. I heard one stat for the summer that there were 11 buyers for every 5 houses on the market in Indianapolis. So just kind of went gangbusters. because of that, prices started creeping up. So I saw an increase in prices over the year. And then also just it's just competitive, so we're having to be unique with our offers of, are we going to do escalation clauses? Are we going to do as is addendums? Are we
Hmm.
going to put a wording in there for appraisals if it doesn't appraise, just to do some different things, because we're competing against 11, 12. I had one offer I put in that we were competing against 30 other people on the same
Wow.
property. We offered 15,000 over. We still didn't win it. So it just got really competitive really fast out there in Q3, Q4 of 2020. The other thing is anything under 200,000. There's just a lack of inventory in that part. And even now, middle of winter, we've got snow on the ground. Anything under 200,000, if it's in good, decent shape on the retail market, it's gone in 2 days with
Yeah.
multiple offers. So that's kind of how a little bit of a recap of what I saw on the retail side for 2020. So how about the wholesale side? What'd you see over there?
Yeah, it's wholesale side was pretty kind of similar as far as inventory being available for us. So, like when COVID first hit, there were about 2 or 3 weeks where like, that was like the first 2 or 3 weeks where there was just uncertainty. No one knew what was going on. Therefore, like investors, even in state, local here, and out of state, they just kind of stopped. Um, they didn't stop buying, but they slowed down a lot. So
Mm,
the people out here from, at least once a week or every other week, I didn't really hear from them for a little bit. So it took a 2 or 3 week time period for things to kind of um pick back up and people start buying again. But when it did, people were buying everything. Because although their inventory just dropped and they couldn't find anything else in the market. So I feel like people were starting to work with wholesalers more than they thought they would. Because, around Indianapolis, I think for a majority, even though there's a lot of good wholesalers around the city, I think a majority of people find their properties on the market. That's just the traditional way of doing it. But since there was nothing on the market, I was doing business with people I haven't done business with before, but they were buying multiple stuff from me. So
mm,
they were taking your low inventory on the MLS, coming to us and saying, okay, well, if they're not here, or if they're not there, then they've got to be with you, right? I'm like, well, yes and no. So like we definitely had a lot of deals to sell, but on our end, like inventory was low because sellers, like you said, they weren't comfortable with having people in their home. And that part of our first process of getting a deal is meeting with the home seller and
mm,
touring the home, getting photos and videos so we could market that to our investor buyers. Well, if we can't get in and set an appointment, we can't make a solid offer for them to make a good deal for everybody. So that's kind of what we dealt with on like that. Like I said, when COVID first hit, and then towards like the third, fourth quarter of last year, um, I would say things went back to normal as far as sellers letting us in. That really wasn't an issue anymore. People kind of cooled down a little bit to the thought of COVID, but throughout the whole year, just the low inventory was the main theme. Um, couldn't keep a property for more than 10 days. Every time I had a property, someone would just call me and just buy it. I couldn't even really like get it out to the public. It was just everything was just flying off the shelves, which is good, right? But at the same
mm,
time, I have investors to serve, and I want to make sure that everyone has the chance to get the property that they want. So it was a very competitive year, and I think everyone. I know I talked about this before we came on. I think everyone in real estate, for the most part, um, probably had one of their best years.
mm,
If you're in a high production level, probably one of your best years, which is just nuts to think about because everyone thought that it was going to be like another market crash, and real estate was
mm,
never touched or affected. Rentals, tenants, that's a different story. But as far as
yeah.
like buying and selling, residential real estate in Indianapolis, that was just hot all year. So one thing you kind of touched on your end, and I was always familiar with this because I don't deal with this on the wholesale side, but you mentioned that people were buying properties for over like 20,000 over asking. Were there ever any issues with appraisals that you saw?
Yes, yes. And actually, I would like to put up my little banner right now that just says, I hate appraisers. That's awful to say. And I do have some good ones. So if you guys need some good ones, I do have a list of them. But I fought 8 appraisals last year, just because that part of the reason was appraisals are very fact based. And so what their facts were, quarter 1, quarter 2 of
Yeah.
2020, there just weren't sales there for them to compare to. And when they went to summer of last year, the prices were so much higher. They just, factually, they just weren't there. And then sometimes too, I think appraisers are like, okay, well, I don't think the house is worth this, and I know that it's supposed to be very factual, but there still is a little bit of wiggle room in there. So I actually fought 8 appraisals. I won 6 of them. So I was kind of pretty proud about that. But it was hard for the appraisals this year. I've also heard that a lot of the appraisers are getting older. There's not a lot of new young appraisers coming in. So if anybody's looking for a job, that I think that's a really good space for you to look into. So it was hard for them. They were just having to crank them out really fast. So I think
Yeah.
sometimes a few mistakes were made, that kind of stuff. But yeah, overall, the appraisers were having a hard time keeping up. So some of them, I'm having like cash offers. I'm just saying no appraisal.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff. And then on ones that are financed, sometimes I'll put wording in the offer of, if it doesn't appraise, we'll meet you halfway, basically,
Yeah.
to kind of do that, because it was just hard because there weren't numbers to support the appraisers. So
Yeah.
that's
So
kind of how I was feeling on that.
yeah. So did you see many sellers like kind of sticking to their guns? Like, hey, I had 20 offers on this house,
Yep.
and you guys chose to pay 20,000
Yep.
over. Like, I'm not budging on my price.
Yeah, really, they did, because they could.
Yeah.
And I was like, looking, I have a few stats here. Like, I know that one of them, like in Marion County, right now, list to sell price is 98.2%. So these sellers know if they just hang on, they're going to get someone that's going to come and pay that price.
Yeah.
So they're willing to just kind of stick to their guns and really hold on to it. I have a question for you that I just kind of thought off of the top of
Mhm.
my head, if I want to ask you. With the seller's market on the retail being so strong, how are you doing on the acquisition side, going and talking to these people and offer them cash deals when they're like, well, if I fix it up and put it on retail, I can get much more for it? What's the kind of response you're getting there?
Yeah. Majority of the people initially are they're asking for more closer towards a retail market price, market value, as if the home was in great condition and ready to put on the market. The issue is the homes aren't
Yeah,
most of the time. Sometimes we get leads that are like, hey, this is a legitimate, hey, this home should be on the market. Like, we can't, it's not a wholesale house, right?
right.
But a lot of the stuff that we get, people are in some sort of money situation or property situation, and for what they're asking doesn't align with their situation at hand. And that just becomes our conversation that we have with them. But initially, I would say, to answer your question, it's they're asking more than what that property is worth, but they know that they can, because there's nothing in their neighborhoods for sale, and every time something comes on the market, it flies off the shelf. So they kind of stick to their guns as well.
Which kind of put it out there for everybody. That's kind of why you brought me on the team, so that
Right.
you could offer these people different options. So, if they don't want the cash price, then you turn the lead over to me. I go in there and say, okay, yes, we can put it on retail, but you're going to have to do this paint. You're going to have to do some flooring. You're
Yep.
going to have it open for open houses. And it's kind of just their pain versus pleasure.
Yep.
Are they willing to put that kind of work into it to get the retail price?
Mhm.
If not, then wholesaling might be a better deal for them. So that's
Yeah, we
exactly
always
what
we
our
always give them
teamwork
that
is.
option. Like, hey, this is our cash offer. If
Mhm.
you want to stick to your price, you're probably going to talk to an agent. Then we just do a warm handoff to you. But yeah, we always give them the option. So yeah, so that is one of the many reasons why we brought you on. So kind of shifting in after last year, like, what are some best ways that an investor could expect to work with an agent or someone like yourself now in this market today?
So, number one, you want to work with me because I'm just the best investor Indianapolis agent out there. But basically, you really do need to find an agent. There are other good agents out there that work well with investors, but you need to find an agent that's investor friendly, that kind of understands your strategy and understands what you're looking for. Um, I still believe there are distressed properties that are on there. So if you look at the MLS, there still might be stuff sitting there, because people are wanting too much for it, and then they haven't done the work to make it retail ready. And so it's been sitting there for a while. So those are the ones that you can go ahead and, make some offers on them. Cash is always king right now because a lot of them are going because of the appraisal issues, are falling out of contract because of financing issues. Another good way is to look not on just the new listings coming up, but also the ones that are back on the market. So they fell out of contract for whatever reason, and now the seller is like tired of it and just wants to get it out there. I will tell you, we're not seeing what we were seeing a couple years ago, where you can come in and offer 20% under list price the first day. It's just not happening. Like I said, we're at 98% list to sale price right now. So you need to be aware of that. In multiple offer situations, there's just different ways that you can write your offer to just make it float to the top. Again, obviously cash. If you can do cash, that's great. But I've also most of my offers that I'm doing with my investors, they just want to leverage out. We're able to do financing, get with a good lender that will work with investors and will, again, know your strategy, know what you're looking for. Or if you can do cash and do a refi out afterwards, even better. Then, you want different things like do an as-is addendum. Okay, you're an investor, that basically you're going to come in and have to fix some things. Find a good inspector. We'll do an as-is addendum, but we'll still get an inspector in there that'll do kind of your 5-point inspection. Look for just your major items. If your roof, furnace, air conditioner, plumbing, electrical, and foundation are good, anything else is fine, So get a good inspector that will help you with that. But then if you say you're accepting the house as is, that doesn't mean we can go back. We can still go back and ask for some things if they need to. But at the same time, you're telling them, I'm not going to nitpick you to death on the inspection. That's going to make you look better in the eyes of the seller over all of the other offers that they're getting. If you can do anything with the appraisal, if you're willing to, you're like, I have a couple extra $1,000. I know that this is a really good property. It's going to gain equity. And you're willing to throw that in. That's another way to make your offer look really good. And then I say, write them as clean as possible. Don't ask for anything extra. And again, it just helps you to float to the top when they're looking at several different offers. There's different things. It's the same thing in the wholesaling world, that pain versus pleasure. See what they need. You as an investor, you don't need them to move out the first day. You can have them rent back from you for a month or two until they find their house or they get the house built. So look at different options of different ways that you can do to just make your offer look the best on the top on the top of the pile of the multiple offers.
Yeah, for sure. So would you, because I have this conversation sometimes with my buyers, but would you consider like the time to close in an offer? Like, because for a wholesaler that closing fast is important, but if, like, for an agent, we're dealing with another seller who's represented by someone else. Are they really looking at time to close, or are they just concerned about how much money they get?
It really depends. And I always just have a conversation with that listing agent before I write the offer, just to see if there's anything else like that they need. So like, for instance, if we're buying from a homeowner, they're in the same situation as we are as investors, where they're looking for another house and they're not finding them. And they actually physically have to have a place to live. So if you can give them a little bit more time, or if they're building, like right now, the builders are like backed up. One project that I'm on, she said that the windows are 12 weeks behind right now. So they might have thought that they're going to get in their house at a certain time, and because of issues with COVID and manufacturing, it's delayed. So if you can just give them a little extra time, they still, if they even haven't found a house yet, if you go ahead and close, but then let them rent back from you, they have that cash in their hand that they have more flexibility on what they can buy, makes their offer stronger on the other side. So to me, it's always a conversation. Just have a conversation, see what it is that they need. Now, if there's another investor on the other side, if they have a tenant in there, they're ready to be done with it, yes, let's close as fast as possible. So it's just kind of feeling out that seller and seeing what exactly they need and meeting those needs.
Yeah, I was always a fan of being creative with offers. Like, don't just make it just, hey, like, this is just like every other offer. Like you said, let them know, like, hey, you can stay in the property for 30 days after we close and rent it back. I think, giving options and getting creative is definitely a key in this market. So yeah, on my side, best ways to work with a wholesaler in today's market. is really just keeping clear communication. So just because properties are flying off the shelf, whenever a good deal comes through, like one thing that's definitely helped me is people will just keep in touch with me and vice versa. Like I'll keep in touch with my buyers as well. But like I've got a couple people that literally like they text me or call me like almost every other day, like, hey, do you have anything? Do you have anything?
Mhm.
Because they know that they're staying top of mind. And sometimes I have to be like, dude, calm down. We just talked an hour ago. Um, but just having just constant communication, just letting them know like, hey, I just bought a house last week, but I can buy one this week if you have anything. So just keep throwing that out there. And then another thing that people have been doing, this has become from the out of state folks. They've been just like they'll send me like a resume of
Yeah.
what they want. So it outlines their criteria. It outlines what their future goals are, like why they're investing. It outlines just kind of who they are as a person. So
Mhm.
every one I get, I print out and I keep, just on the wall by my desk. So it's like on a bulletin board. So whenever a deal does come through, like it's just really easy for me to look over there and say, well, that kind of fits that box. Let me just go ahead and shoot this over and see if it fits. Um, and then yeah, so just clear communication, and then it's having financing like just ready to go.
Ready. Mhm.
So working with us is a little different because if anyone's ever done business with us, we own the properties we sell, so we're not on a strict timeline on trying to assign a contract and making sure it aligns with the purchase agreement we have with the seller. It all just it goes through us, so there's no middleman. So as far as
Mhm.
like having a cash offer that can close in 10 days isn't as important as maybe another wholesaler you might be working with, because we could definitely do traditional financing or hard money, and we'll just close when that's ready. But for anyone else, just in general, as working with a wholesaler, I would say make sure you have a clear timeline of when you can close, because if you approach a wholesaler and you see a hot deal, you want to jump on it, they're probably going to want you to try to close within
Mhm.
7 to 10 days. That's pretty normal, especially right now. Like you said, sellers are asking what they want and they're getting it. Some wholesalers are holding true to their numbers as well. Might not make sense all the time, but there's people out there right now in this market that are just buying it because they need a deal and they're hungry for it. um, those investors, I'm not sure how long they'll stick around, to be honest, because they're just shooting from the hip. And like I said, they're just hungry to get a deal. I think it's very, very key to stay patient in this market, because it can
Mhm.
get frustrating, especially for the higher level investors who they want to buy as many deals as possible. It could be as low as 10 a year or 20 a year, 30 a year, whatever it may be. They just want to, if they just want deals, they want volume, because they want to explode their monthly cash flow. But I see the good ones being patient, and they're always saying, hey, I'm not going to try to make this a deal if it doesn't work for my
Right.
numbers. So they just move on, and that's key. But there are plenty of people out there right now that are just jumping on deals. So yeah, just to recap that. So just have funds ready, or you have your financing clear. Make sure there's not going to be any hiccups in closing, and just being in constant communication with your key wholesale contacts to let them know that, like, hey, I'm looking for a house this week. So you kind of go to the top of their radar. Any other best practices for you, or what's been working with your investor buyers?
I would say same thing. Have your financing ready. I did want to just kind of put a plug in there that I know you don't use this a whole lot often, but Simple Wholesaling offers seller financing as
Hmm.
well. And
Yep.
basically, one of my investors, what they did with you is she wanted to save her cash for the construction. So basically, she did seller financing with you, did the $500 down, 500 a month. And then she just saved her quote unquote down payment for her construction cost. The construction, she was doing it herself, so it took 6 months, a little bit longer. But then what she's going to do then is construction costs are done. She gets her tenant in there. Then she's going to go and get an appraisal, get a traditional lender on that, and then cash refi it out, pay you guys off, and then go on. And then she now has her seed money for the next one. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there for any
Yeah.
investors that that's kind of a really cool deal that Simple Wholesaling offers.
No, I love that we offer that. I mean, to be honest, Gloria, we don't do enough of those with like those type of investors. We
Right.
sell we sell a lot of properties on seller financing to um, like short-term like owners that who just plan on there
Mhm.
living there for a little bit and then probably selling the house. But I I push it. Not a lot of people take
Yeah.
advantage of it, and that sounds like it works out for that client of yours. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
So we're a month into 2021. Kind of what have you been seeing, and what do you expect to see for the rest of the year that could probably just kind of give a glimpse to any investors listening from your perspective?
I think it goes back to kind of what you were saying of they just need to be patient. I think in this world a lot we need to think of it as a marathon and not a sprint. Yes, they're ready to go. They want to find something now. And yes, we talk about prices increasing, but if you look at perspective, compared to properties on the West Coast, we're still pretty close to like 1% if they're wanting to do the rentals. For flips, I mean, there's just Indianapolis is so stable in their economy right now that I think that there's a lot of good neighborhoods that those flips really work. And especially because these retail homeowners are really looking for something, but they don't want to do the work. So if you can get in there and you can do the work and flip it, you can make some good money.
Yeah.
So again, look for those types of deals. You might need to just pivot a little bit from what your strategy was a couple years ago. We're not finding the nice suburban homes that just need a little paint and flooring and you can throw a tenant in there. Maybe you need to start looking at different neighborhoods that you hadn't looked at before.
Hmm.
One of the good things about Indianapolis is it's so diverse that you can just do so many different things in different neighborhoods. Make sure to do your research. Talk to Randy or I. We're going to tell you. I mean, I feel like that's kind of our expertise is we know the area, we know the neighborhoods, we know the different types of strategies that work for different neighborhoods. Some still are very much buy and hold neighborhoods. Some are flip neighborhoods. So I would say maybe think about your strategy. Think if you need to switch that up a little bit. But again, be patient. Have your financing ready so when a deal comes up, you've got to be ready to pounce because it's going to go fast. If it's a good deal, there's a lot of different people that are targeting this market right now, and you just got to be ready to go. Just to kind of give you a little bit of numbers, just this month in January, I mean, there's snow on the ground. Typically, this time of year, homeowners just aren't looking. They just want to
Right.
be cozy in their houses. A lot of these buyers were out looking all last summer and didn't find anything, so they're still looking. And then investors still, I mean, Indianapolis is just a really good spot for investors. So, for instance, I think I picked up like 25 new investors this month.
Hmm.
And then my existing investors, I've had like 50 conversations with people of, hey, find me something. I'm looking for something now. So even though it's the middle of winter here in January, it's still going. That's only going to increase as we ramp up in the spring market. So like Randy said, keep in touch with us. We're trying to keep in touch with you. We've got different things in place that we're going to be, sending you deals. On the retail side, we have a whole new program with Redbridge that we're going to be getting ramped up. And if you're on Randy's list or not on mine, make sure to just email us and we'll get you on both lists because that's kind of what we're trying to do with our synergy here of you're getting both the wholesale and the retail side. So what we're doing on the Redbridge real estate side is we're going out and we're evaluating deals that are on the MLS and just showing them to you of, hey, this really does work. You can find them on the deals.
Hmm.
So try to partner yourself up with different team members that are going to help be your boots on the ground and help you evaluate those deals ahead of time. But then, you can only do so much analysis and then you're just going to have to jump and just do it. So that's kind of my opinion is just be ready to go. And then when good deal comes up, go ahead and pounce on
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on every point I had to make.
it. Sorry.
No,
Stole your
you're good.
thunder.
No, so basically, yeah, my thing is, I mean, 2020 is just as far as the market goes, is bleeding over to 2021. I think it's going to be the same, and I think it's going to be just as competitive as it was. So just having everything and having your ducks in a row is going to be huge. And one thing, yeah, I was going to mention, you kind of touched on that as well, is just be open to trying something new, or as far as like be open to buying a property in a different area that you haven't yet. Just because you're the same old is not going to work. There's not going to be enough out there right now, at least, to continue to do maybe the same buying strategy or buying area that you've been doing. Um, so I would say just keep an open mind to trying in different neighborhoods, looking at different types of properties, as long as it works for your numbers. And then also, you could still buy some good rentals here and
Mhm.
get some good tenants there. So just I'd brush up on your property manager,
Yes.
team members. Just make sure that you're aligned with them as far as screening tenants and making sure that
Mhm.
process is going to go smooth, because I've seen a lot of people kind of stop buying the rentals because of the tenant issues that we've had just everywhere. But it's still possible, and there's still a lot of good property managers there that are doing it
Yes.
right and making sure that people's rentals are still going to be successful and cash flowing. So
And I say, like in my onboarding calls with property managers, I like to say, I think I'm the most important person on your team, but I'm not. Your property manager is the most important part of your team.
yeah,
Because like you said, screening tenants, watching your houses for small maintenance issues so they don't become big maintenance issues. I talked to one particular property manager that had 800 doors, and I asked her, what the issues were with evictions. And she said, honestly, I only have 16 out of those 800 that I've had
exactly.
trouble with. And she said, basically, the ones that did lose their jobs, there's a lot of supplemental things from the city and from the state that they could apply for.
Hmm.
And she, as a good property manager, went to them and helped them apply for that.
Exactly.
And so, that's really key, is to get a good property manager in there, and they're going to help you with all of those issues.
Yep, 100%. Well, that's the end of the show as far as those points we wanted to cover. Gloria, is there any last words you want to say?
I really think 2021 is going to be awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to it. Yes, I think there's still good deals in Indianapolis. We have a very strong economy. I don't think that COVID hit us as bad as it did other areas. Yes, there are a few, like the hospitality industry, the convention industry, sports stuff, but it's all coming back. And we're already seeing some things already happening in Indianapolis that are very, very promising. I still think Indianapolis is a great area for investors. I think 2021 is going to be a great, great year. And I think just start partnering with Simple Wholesaling, Redbridge Real Estate. We're going to get you all the facts and all the data you need to make really good decisions.
awesome. I appreciate it. And then your email where people can reach you at.
So my email is gloria@gearregroup.com. So gloria@gearrealestategroup.com.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. And this wraps up today's episode of the Indie Investor Pod, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.
Have a great day.